is going to be on innovation or acquisition, which is going to be done by our J9 directorate. The floor is yours, sir.
Hey, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Chris Minio. I'm the J9 technical director, J9 being acquisitions and technology development, of course. So there's kind of a lot of things I'd like to talk about this afternoon, but so I can maybe customize it a bit. Are most of you with companies? Yeah? No? Most of you with at Cyber Command already? No, not a lot? Okay. Yeah. All right, thanks. So what I'd like to start by talking about, right, is the role of Cyber Command regarding technology development. It's more than the fact that we care about innovation or stakeholder in innovation, but, a lot of us not being at Cyber Command already, where I'd kind of like to start is some of the unique aspects of Cyber Command as a COCOM, and our real stake in innovation in cyber. I'd like to then kind of move into the speed and urgency with which we have to operate. The speed and urgency of innovation this is something that maybe has noticeably changed in the last 12 months or so. It's something that I'd also like to discuss with you all, and then the platform and partners that we need to support all that. So and at that point we'll talk a bit about some of our acquisition tools and that sort of thing. I'll move into to strategies for tech transfer and acquisition. Last several months, we've made great strides in our processes and our techniques for tech transfer. So I'd like to share some of those. Like to maybe discuss with you guys how you may want to engage with us on that front, and then I'll move on to what it is we actually need. So you may or may not be aware we have our technical challenge problems posted on our website. Those have recently been reworked. So I have some business cards with a QR code that you can get them. So we have new tech challenge problems, and then I definitely like to finish up by talking to you about arguably one of the most exciting things I have going on right now, which is our AI roadmap and implementation plan for the cyber operations forces. So that's a ton of opportunity right there. So a little bit about the responsibilities of Cyber Command, just to baseline us all. Right, we engage in joint warfighting like any COCOM. A little bit of the difference is Cyber Command's responsibility to train and equip our forces. So we execute operations in cyberspace every day. I'll refer a bunch of times to our commander's lines of effort. So just to be clear on what those are, right? General Nakasoni's primary lines of effort are to provide insight and defend the nation, to secure, operate, and defend the DODN, to provide options to the joint COCOM commanders, support the warfighter, and build partnerships because we're stronger together, and we really believe that our allies and our partnership with other nations is one of the things that causes us to stand apart from our adversaries. So, right, we're executing operations every day, many operations every day. Infrastructure doesn't go offline for upgrades or for tests or for that sort of thing. So this presents some challenges to innovation. We'll talk a bit about that. And I'd also like to, in terms of Cyber Command's responsibility regarding technology innovation, you may or may not be aware that Cyber Command, some of the foundational legislation that provided authorities to Cyber Command was Title 10, 167B, and I point that out because it's very similar to the language in 167, which is what created SOCOM. So I don't know if this analogy helps at all with you, but I'll talk a little bit about the way in which our technology development for SOCOM, our technology development is slightly different from that of SOCOM, right? So forces present their trained people, their technologies to SOCOM. SOCOM has an entire acquisition arm. They develop technologies on top of that which the services have. They customize them for special operations for their forces, and they have their soft, unique needs. The model with Cyber Command is just a little bit different, and this is a really important point. So Cyber Command's responsibility to equip the forces starts with the JICWA, and I think there may have been other briefings on that in this right here. But But right, so the JICWA is the Joint Cyber Warfighting Architecture is the core of our infrastructure. So you can think about this a little bit of the inverse of what I just described. That Cyber Command is responsible for creating the foundation upon which we and others will build the technologies that are needed to offer operations or offer options to the commander, and the services will build on top of the JICWA that which they need for their service-specific cyber needs. So, right, the important thing here is that Cyber Command, Joint Force Provider and Trainer, and this is a perspective that's been evolving pretty recently, but part of being a joint force provider includes a responsibility to shepherd innovation in cyber. So that makes us not just a recipient of new cyber technologies. It makes us not even just a stakeholder. We're in this game. We are peers. We have some forward-leaning developments going on within the command. We have JCTDs, or at least a JCTD in the department. We have technical work in J9. We sponsor external work, and we're a member of the DoD S&T community. So, also bring up the first point about this, that partnerships are key, and I'll probably say that over and over, but a lot of the progress we made mitigating tech transfer challenges and getting technology from either your products or from the labs to the warfighter has just basically had to do with good partnerships. So I'll talk a bit about that. Right. So though there have been a number of true successes, we suffer from a lot of the tech transfer challenges that everyone else faces, right? Alignment of the technology opportunity in the market, the maturity, alignment with what an accepting program might be expecting, hitting the budget cycle, right? So this is the first thing that I'd really like to talk about, what we've done to kind of mitigate some of these paths and how I can engage you in these processes. So first, I'll note that innovation is not just technical innovation. Realize that even if we develop incredible technology, we're still held back if the people, the processes, decision making at all echelons, if these things don't progress along with the technology. How to think about risk in our cyber operations, how to think about reward and measures of effectiveness. These are all things that we, of course, do today, but evolution in the thinking and the measurement of these things and our simulation capabilities in our environments will really help us take advantage of new technologies that you all and others are bringing to the fight. So a bit about the speed and scale, right, and the immediate urgency, the things that have changed in the past months that no doubt you all read the news. So in the DoD, historically, there's many cases where it takes 10 plus years for an innovation in basic science to reach the warfighter, right? That's it's the lengthy process that you go through to take something in the physical domain, operationalize it, harden it, test it, develop the market around it, the infrastructure, the supporting needs, all of that stuff. The other thing about a lot of other innovation, and this is the point that I'm stealing from Eric Schmidt's recent paper in Foreign Affairs about AI that he published recently, is that over history, a lot of technical innovations, when a company has adopted them, it was kind of like a singular point, right? You crossed a threshold. You went from one of his examples was energy production using steam turbines to nuclear fission, right? You went from the other example he used was like the Bronze Age to steel. So when a nation has made that singular shift, you embrace the technology and everything was great. The real difference here, the real urgency, the real need for all this, for tech transfer innovation and intense partnering, is that, you're surely all aware of the recent advances in AI, and that's not a singular thing that you adopt and then enjoy. It creates you a platform where you then perform more iterations of experimentation. There's more invention, and then you continue to do better. So it's like it creates this pressure. It creates the pressure like when like Jeff Bezos is like his always day one letter. So it creates this real pressure to continuously innovate, to stay on top, to embrace these things. And cyber is much the same way. If you're not continuing to embrace innovation, stay on top, I mean, you won't even be able to understand the attacks that you're facing. So there's just, whether it's brought on by the recent progress in AI, observations from Ukraine, there's a tremendous amount of recent urgency to innovate. That Schmidt paper goes on to even say that he predicts that a nation's power will be measured by its ability to innovate quickly, right? So we have this urgency, and we have some tools that we use to get these technologies to the warfighter. So broadly speaking, the first things that we need are, we need the platform. We need the home for these technologies to go to so that they're accessible to the warfighter. That's the JICWA, but I'll talk a bit about specific aspects of the JICWA in a second. We need the people. We need the access to the people. There's a piece of that that's, of course, contracting. There's a piece of that that is like the strategy and the model that members of the COF work together with people on the outside. Talk a bit about that, and then it's the innovation and tech transfer, and as I'll circle back around to, these tools are really coming together, right? The urgency, the platform, some recent authorities that the command has that I'll talk about. Labs that we've always had access to, including like the Cyber Immersion Lab, that's part of Cyber Command, and Dreamport. But with this picture coming together, there's a much more holistic strategy for how all of these things fit together. And then I definitely like to spend some time talking about Constellation. It's not a detail. It's you may have seen. There's a nice interview that Tejas, the DARPA PM, gave to the Register that's online, and Mike Clark, my boss, has did an interview for Defense Scoop on this. So Cyber Command is definitely out. I mean, Constellation is definitely out there, but it represents a model for how we'd like to transition things from laboratories. So that's something I'll definitely talk a bit about as well. So, right, innovation, speed, and the platform. So we all know that the JICWA needs to be this platform that provides the right infrastructure, the right data services, the right common services, so that we can quickly bring new capabilities and make it available to the warfighter. We're not starting from ground up each time. We also know that the JICWA has to be this flexible architecture, so that we can take innovations from anywhere and the sorts of things that we can't even predict right now. And that's clearly like a really hard balance to strike. So while we work on the JICWA core, we have our JICWA programs today that we're using in the fight every day, don't take offline, but we are continuing to innovate on the JICWA core, on that infrastructure, data, and common services that really prepare us for the future. So the innovation on the JICWA core, along with the NDAA that makes Cyber Command responsible for the development of the JICWA, and the efforts to integrate all of the JICWA components that have been programs at different services, really creates a target. It really creates a target that when you're developing technology, when you're partnering with somebody like DARPA, like I'll describe, you have a place to aim. You have a set of interfaces. You have a set of services. You have a thing to aim for. And right today, the integration is still in progress, but it's drastically improved compared to where it was 12 months ago, and continuing to work on the core to make it a better target for your technologies. So right, not only the core, but there's a tremendous amount of work on the JICWA DevSecOps pipeline, so that we can strike this balance between cyber tools being these things that you develop and then start to DT and OA like a traditional DoD tool, but of course embrace software acquisition pathways, and of course embrace a DevSecOps model where these our tools will come out of the pipeline, the form, the fit, the security that's needed to be operational right away. So we have no excuse to allow ourselves years to go from fundamental technology innovation to the warfighter, right? This is an area where algorithms make a difference, an area where data science make a difference, a single new implementation of an analytic makes a difference. So the JICWA is quickly evolving to accept these things. Right, and we're performing tactical cyber today, but this will truly take tactical cyber to a new level, the speed of development. One of the things General Nakasone says about partnering is, right, partnering gives us scale. We're better together, we're stronger together, we have better visibility together, but we can also scale. We have more people, and so we're constantly looking for ways to effectively leverage the domestic talent in this area for Cyber Command's mission. And there's a lot of models to do that, right? There's capability development by a PMO. There's in cases there's support from an FFRDC like Lincoln Laboratory or APL or MITRE that produces technologies that were used in operations. There's of course organic development by the forces. There's time where that development is augmented by contractors. There's a lot of models here, and they each have their place about the amount of the operational window you have where a tool will be useful. They each have their place where the amount of durability of the requirement you're satisfying, like the term of sustainment we need to plan for. So each of these things have their place. And I guess really what I'd point out is that the expertise in the country, the DIB, is not that big. So we really need to use all of it. And right, so people from within Cyber Command that are here, people that may have sent some of your people into our spaces to do joint development. Please looking for what models work, other innovative ways, contracting strategies, and so on, that we can continue to augment our forces. What's important, getting development environments out to people. So these are all things that we're actively working, but could certainly use feedback in what's effective for you all. So a little bit about some of those new tools and authorities, right? So again, we have our existing PIA, our partnership intermediary agreement that creates Dreamport. We have Mindscape, which is a Dreamport that can take work at other levels, and we have the Cyber Immersion Lab. And we had these 3 laboratory environments, but you combine them with tools that we got when there was the recent DoD instruction that designated COCOMs as DoD components. We then got the authority to execute CRADAs. We got the authority to execute prototyping OTAs, and the combination of these things. We're still working on our first CRADA right now, but the combination of these things really will help us leverage these laboratories, right? It gives us the environment where we can have a CRADA, we can collaborate with others, where there's mutual benefit, and then we can roll right into a prototyping OTA. We have the authority to execute these prize awards also. This is something that we can now leverage a little bit more heavily coming out of Dreamport rapid prototyping events, but these tools that we previously had, along with these new authorities, right? The urgency is really makes me optimistic for the sorts of activities we can take on in getting technology to the warfighter. So, I'm going to talk a bit about Constellation now. So what we do, what we intend to do once we have identified technologies that meet our critical need, right? So at a high level, right, Constellation is risk reduction for the JICWA, for our tool development. It's risk reduction for should we need to suddenly scale. The Constellation is looking ahead to the future more so than focused on an imminent requirement or something that we have that the mission is depending on right this second. Now, it's from the top. General Nakasone is in support of Constellation. The Congress is in support of Constellation. It actually was called out by name in the NDAA, directing us to pursue it. Though of course we were already. And a little bit about what is it? So from DARPA's perspective, it's this means where if you're a DARPA PM with a technology, and many people face a similar challenge, you have to rely on your organic network to find out where it belongs in many cases. You have to find someone who's interested. You have to demonstrate value to their mission. That person may or may not be the decision maker. That decision maker may or may not be a program management office. They may inherit it and sustain it for some, So there's a lot of organic networking that has to happen. Despite this, it is successful today, but we can do better, and we can go from the point where the organic network that finds a home for a technology may not capture all of the benefits, all the missions that can benefit, right? So we're certainly moving away from having defensive technologies, offensive technologies. These are combined operations. These are full spectrum cyber operations, and it's the same underlying technologies in many of them. So the point of Constellation is to make it clear to the PMs or to anybody with the technology how the forces can speak with one voice, how they get a place where they can bring their technologies to, and a place where all missions we can get the relevant place so all the missions are relevant. If an organic network might have had a connection to a particular service cyber component, for example, there's no reason that if Fleet Cyber and our Cyber is performing a very similar mission in some cases, that the technology should land at the one where the relationship existed, right? So a lot of effort to make sure that these things go where they need to go, and to reduce the friction that's involved with making these matches, right? So from my view, though, from U.S. Cyber Command view, what we really need to do is solve another set of problems about tech transfer. The tools and technologies that come out of the S&T community and come out of DARPA many times are fantastic. Many times are not compatible with the risk model that a PMO is willing to take on. Many times don't fit nice and squarely into our infrastructure, or fit nice and squarely into a workflow that an operator is used to using. Many times a project will be complete and it'll be like an imminent need. Okay, now what? The team's about to disband, and that doesn't really meet with the funding cycles that we operate on. So Constellation is really, really aimed at all of these problems. You don't start one of these Constellation pilots when the technology development is finished or when the research is finished. You start one of these Constellation pilots earlier, when the science demonstrates some success. Like, there's room for a Constellation pilot to fail. The pilot is what works with those developing the fundamental technology. The pilot is what works with the scientists to cause the artifacts that come out on the other end to be form fit to COF workflows, to be incorporated into COF workflows. Has the ability to bend JICWA to meet the technology if that's what's needed. It doesn't have to be just one-sided. And importantly, funding-wise, can be offset in time from the technical development. So if what you're really doing is spending some period of time following the DARPA program or the technical development, where additional engineering, additional integration, additional hardening, additional test is being performed, that's what the Constellation project will take on, and also bridges to the point where a program can pick up this work. So it covers this gap on a lot of fronts. This gap in risk, this gap in funding, this gap in awareness of something even existing, an opportunity even existing. So, right, I'm really, really optimistic for this. Really optimistic for how it'll work. We have an MOU in place with DARPA. There's a lot of things that you'd expect to be in the MOU. Importantly, Cyber Command is dedicating operational forces to one of our most valuable resources, right? Our operators' time, dedicating to testing these tools, providing feedback to developers of these things. So So Constellation really is hopefully removes all the friction where if a technology is going to be impactful for the warfighter, it gets its chance. I could had a few examples. Like one example of a Constellation pilot, one we're starting right now, is a DARPA project, Chase Cyber Hunting at Scale. These analytics that help the network defender, right? So what happens? So not to trivialize network defense, of course, but if you you have to examine a lot of connections, right? You're examining a network. You need to examine many connections, millions of connections, and despite the tooling and technology and products available, operators seem to all have their own techniques. Of course, they all have their own techniques for doing this. Some of them create their own tools on the fly. Still, always, many of them customize tools, customize within frameworks today, right? So Chase was this set of analytics that looks at all the connections, classifies them, assigns like a riskiness score to them, and then sort of really narrows down what the analysts have to look at. Many groups try this, in DoD red teaming exercises. Of over 1 million connections, the tools actually find all of the red team activity in the top number of scores. So the top number of scores is manageable for a human. So, but the issue is that's as far as it got while it was a DARPA project. Can't really explain why. Many of the friction points I described earlier. But now this being a Constellation pilot, sharing it with the forces, getting operator time on it, it will, it should really have a chance to make its way into the SOCs, make its way onto the tools used by the cyber protection teams and the hunt teams where appropriate. It should really be given a chance to succeed. And so there's other examples. There's a few pilots starting now, more on the way. A lot of commitment to Constellation. The other hope about Constellation, a key reason I'm bringing it up actually, is that nothing lasts forever at DARPA. DARPA is a projects agency, so though we're starting this with DARPA, we don't know how long it will run with only DARPA projects. We don't know how long DARPA will really be a co-leader of this with us. So really, my hope for this is we find the right pilots to start to introduce to it that are from other organizations, so we can find what other frictions exist, what else has to be knocked down, and one day this may just be a Cyber Command thing, or one day this may be Cyber Command plus another partner. So really looking forward to this. A lot of visibility on it, and I hope we grow, and I hope it becomes our model for how to transition these technologies. So we've had successful tech transfers, despite all the friction. It's amazing. It's the perseverance of our people. People are amazing. But then if you take a step back and you examine, right, the authorities in 167B, you look at enhanced budget control and the ability that the command has to put resources into these activities. The responsibility for the JICWA per the NDAA, the opportunity and urgency with AI to innovate rapidly now, the strategy that weaves together Constellation, JICWA DevSecOps, JICWA as an integration target, the contracting authorities, some other ones we're also pursuing other contracting authorities. That I'm less familiar with, but they come with other hiring authorities. They come with other mechanisms to collaborate with partners. So all of these things kind of give me reason to be very, very optimistic about the sorts of tech transfers that we'll be able to enable in the near future. I'd like to move on from that, though, to the command challenge problems that I mentioned earlier. So I hope that you all will read the command challenge problems, or see how they're relevant to your problems in your life in the near future. But a few things about them. They're really for discussion shaping, right? They're not a set of just requirements they can stand on their own. They're a framework for discussion. They're certainly in areas of opportunity, and not exhaustive. In fact, the version that has just been redone has fewer problems in it than previous ones, and that's not because our mission scope has shrank. It's because we really decided to look at more general areas and focus our efforts. So the tech challenge problems can maybe drive IRAD of yours. We can examine your products in the context of TCPs that are satisfied. But an important thing to recognize is we already have capability in many of the areas that the technical challenge problems call out. So really what we need is interaction and engagement about ideas and solutions, so that after some iteration we can hit the right opportunity, that cost benefit is substantially better than what we have today, more efficient than what we have today. It takes iteration. So I'll tell you our 6 areas that we've been these tech challenge problems into, and that'll become a little bit more clear in a second. But I want to also recognize that it's easy to read these tech challenge problems and think about the internet, think about our networks. There are also many of them, not every single one. Many of them are also relevant to cyber physical systems, to space systems, to RF systems, to EW. Right? There's questions in there that look to secure SCADA, that look to secure ICS, industrial control systems. There's questions in there, of course, that look for more efficient ways to perform vulnerability research. All these things are relevant to technologies in many, I don't want to overuse the word domain, right? But in many parts of the RF spectrum, I guess. It's right. Yeah. So please think widely. I'll also note that they're not aligned to the 4 commander objectives that I noted earlier, and I'll hit this in a moment when I talk about the AI roadmap. But it's after this exercise developing the roadmap for the forces, that's immediately clear to me, because when you develop the roadmap for the forces and you think holistically about the technology needed for our mission, what I find myself doing with the team supporting is identifying potential scale bottlenecks, identifying what sorts of functions we'd like to drastically increase our scale and speed at to enhance persistent engagement, right? And then when you kind of write these down, you find that you have a lot of similarity between that which is needed to defend the nation and that which is needed to provide options to the COCOM, the Joint Force Commanders. You find a lot of underlying commonality in this. So, hopefully will come as no surprise that all of these technologies, all of these problems fulfill mission needs. Many of them have multi-use, and right. It again takes iteration to find the right cost benefit opportunity. It takes iteration to make sure that the opportunities are applied to the right areas. So I'll tell you. I'll hit briefly the 6 areas that they're broken into, right? Because I'd like to leave some time at the end for questions, and maybe you may have questions about these particular areas. So one is vulnerabilities and exploits. Without going into the questions in that, right, it talks about resilience and ICS. It really gets after the speed with which you can perform these analyses, insights from data. Right, it talks about metadata analysis and PCAP analysis, things which we can of course do today, but right, what are opportunities to scale this further? This is of course this problem area is of course one where we do have robust capability, but right, always looking for opportunities to improve. Also, right, thinking about these problems across all 4 of the commander lines of effort, when you start to think about enabling partnerships, working with our allies, you realize that maybe you come up with slightly different solutions for some of these things. Some of these, ensuring these capabilities are integrated in a way that they can be shared and collaborated with versus some core part of your architecture that can't be peeled apart, for example, right? So vulnerabilities and exploits, network security, monitoring and visualization, another one big on insights from data. This one, hopes to inform our strategies for censoring, for data acquisition. Important questions about like really detailed dynamic enumeration and terrain discovery, right? That has uses across the lines of effort. Technology to become zero trust compliant are in this area. It's a right important area. Another one is modeling and predictive analytics. This one is more they're all proactive, but this one is very forward leaning, right? If you really think about it and think about it, maybe MITRE ATT&CK framework, think about it, you have to do there's a lot of ways to craft an attack, or attack could be crafted on you, but, there's some fundamental things that the attacker has to, of course, do, and the predictive analytics, the problems in this area start to characterize behavior, start to go back to that level and try to really be very predictive about the attacks that you're expected to see, so you can defend in advance. Right, environments enable partnering, heavy emphasis on defense against information operations. Big part of defending the nation is ensuring the public has access to, or the nation has options to combat misinformation, to combat I/O campaigns from our adversaries. There's a topic about persona and identity, right? As no doubt you've seen with the generative models, you can create content very quickly. Some of these questions aim at the fact that there still, of course, has to be a delivery mechanism for that content. So if your adversary is, delivering or creating malicious content, how can we detect those false persona? How can we distinguish that sort of thing? How do we protect against phishing? How do we secure or ensure that multi-factor authentication doesn't have vulnerabilities? That sort of thing. Another area is permeability and agility across domains, right? A couple of questions here, really getting at, make sure we think about cyber in terms of support to the joint functions, integration with kinetic operations, working across classification boundaries. Of course, we do all these things today, right? But techniques, analytics, technology to help all of that be more efficient. Right, and I'll hit the last tech challenge problem category is infrastructure and transport. This is a good example of one where clearly all the tech challenge problems aren't just seeking a product as a solution, right? Some of them talk about our, things fundamental to our data infrastructure, ideas that might revolve around consortiums or standards, ideas that might blend OCO, DCO, different, really enable full spectrum operations from the same view of data. So set of questions about that. So we have in addition to the US Cyber Command website, there's a tech portal set up. It is pretty new. Doesn't come up very frequently in Google quite yet. We haven't, I guess, paid for the ClickBox to boost it. But right, if you want to find it, you can find it here. And the portal has the tech challenge problems and ways to engage. So the tech challenge problems are orthogonal to the commander's lines of effort, but absolutely support them. Think about full spectrum operations in each of these areas. Think about the whole RF spectrum. We consider all the commander lines of effort when examining potential solutions to the tech challenge problems and that sort of thing. So I'd like to talk just a bit about the AI roadmap that I mentioned earlier, and then see what you all have to say. So the FY23 NDAA, right? So this is of course the forces leverage AI technology or machine learning technology in a lot of different ways. The impetus coming from the FY23 NDAA really makes us think very holistically about it, provides us a lot of opportunity, right? So specifically, the Congress is asking us for a roadmap and an implementation plan, asking the Cyber Command Commander and the DoD CIO jointly to author this. And right, look out 5 years. What do you need to rapidly adopt and acquire AI systems? What applications, what supporting data, what data management processes are needed? And for the scope of the COF's missions, for the scope of the cyber operations forces. Right, our close collaborators on this project so far are many of those organizations that we're coordinating with, the DoD CDAO, DARPA, NSA, the USDRNE, of course our great contributions from the service cyber components and elsewhere in the services, FFRDCs, a few other people from around. But right, so a broad set of backgrounds examining this for us, and for the COF, the NDA specifically asks about, right, AI for cybersecurity of DoD systems, AI for cyber effects operations, some language that basically amounts to mitigating adversarial AI, and then defending against adversary-based AI attacks. So, right, not ready to share exactly what we're planning for each of those, but we have. I'll talk about some of the challenges that we hope to address in there, and of course, an important thing about the NDAA is it gives us broad latitude to ask, to indicate what funding is needed, what authorities are needed, what policies are needed, so that we can really not only take the technologies and create the technologies, but really employ them for operations. So, in a number of ways, this is absolutely in line with the National Defense Strategy. So let me just hit some of the overarching roadmap goals. Provides this speed, scale, new capability for each commander objective, really scale the persistent engagement, become predictive, become proactive, continue to, and it really invokes some of the doctrine words, like really invokes thoughts of mass, really invokes thoughts of like seize the initiative, the sort of capability that you can really bring at scale. And of course, a lot of times, a lot of tools, a lot of press, a lot of the world makes it seem like the advantage is always to the attacker. The attacker could be anywhere. It's so hard. It's so big. But really, with the right technologies, the internet isn't that big, and there's still TTPs. There's still patterns to identify. So I'm really hopeful that the overall objective is to really to give Cyber Command and give the United States the advantage in all circumstances. Real quick, of course, since we started working on this, think about what happened in the world. Ours posted the first article that I saw about using ChatGPT to generate malware. Microsoft launched Copilot, Security Copilot. OpenAI put some really surprising things on the archive about one that I noted was automated influence operations and emerging threats and potential mitigations. That was a really interesting paper. Spoiler alert: there's no silver bullet, but there's a lot that can be done. The Elon Musk letter about pump the brakes. There's a couple of really interesting SASC hearings on YouTube where Jason Matheny, I think the CTO of Palantir, really talked about some fundamental things. When we invented computers, it was function first, and then security later. And then we invented the internet, and it was function first, and then security later. And here we are, which many people profiting from a tremendously large cybersecurity industry, but there's this opportunity to think about machine learning technologies, and there's the opportunity now to think about it with security as a peer to function. So, some of the biggest roadmap challenges actually revolve around many of the things that will come as a surprise, but especially security, securing the data sets, risk of reverse engineering, securing the models, all the problems you hear, of course, bias that may even be acceptable to the public as products are used or open source things are trained, but bias in training sets that may be unacceptable to the department and the department's uses. Yeah. So okay. Right. Many problems about right. Also, of course, the security of the stack and the tools themselves. Right. The working. One of the key reasons that DoD-CIO is a peer with us here on authoring this and doing all the work is that we need to get to continuous ATO on these systems. We need to accredit quickly. We need to these things stagnate. So need to be a peer with DoD-CIO to make sure these are not accreditation approvals. Getting things through is certainly not a one-off, and we're all on board with that. Okay, so I want to save a minute for questions anyway, or a few minutes. So right. AI roadmap is our opportunity to double down on persistent engagement, really scale. We have our engagement portal. Tech challenge problems have just been, reconsidered. Right. Yeah. So, lot to be excited about, I think. Are there any questions I can answer? All right. Well, I won't go back and start rambling more. You're welcome to come here. Connect with our portal. Yeah, come chat. Thank you very much. Thanks for your attention, everybody.